Welcome to the Red State Finance Podcast, the show where we break down the markets, the policy, and your money through a clear, common sense lens. I'm your host, Dana.
And I'm Anthony. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Today, we are talking about a trend that started out as a convenient way for college kids to split a $100 pair of sneakers into 4 easy payments.
Right.
And has somehow transformed into the terrifying backbone of the American consumer economy.
That's right, Anthony. We're talking about Buy Now, Pay Later, or BNPL, except we aren't just talking about buying clothes or concert tickets anymore. We are talking about financing a 12 carton of organic eggs, a gallon of milk, and a brand new iPhone lease that you'll be paying off until the heat death of the universe.
A lot of people look at BNPL as a helpful little budgeting tool. But if you look at the raw data, hidden underneath our $18.6 trillion national household debt, there is an invisible, unregulated bubble brewing.
Wow!
Some top market analysts are calling it shadow debt, and it might just be the catalyst for America's next major financial crisis.
So grab your coffee, hold on to your wallet, and please, for the love of God, don't put this episode on a 4-payment installment plan. Let's get into the numbers.
To understand how we got into this mess, Dana, we have to look at how quickly the culture shifted. 5 years ago, if you told someone you were financing your weekly grocery run over 6 weeks with interest-free installments, they'd ask if you lost your job.
Yeah, exactly.
Today, it's literally a checkout button on your supermarket app.
It really is. The latest numbers from LendingTree's 2026 report are staggering. Almost 30% of all BNPL users have now used installment loans to buy groceries.
Wow.
That's double the rate from just 2 years ago. And among Gen Z and parents with young kids, that number jumps to nearly 40%.
Think about the math on that for a second. Groceries are a non-durable, perishable good. You consume the food in 5 days, but you are paying off the installment plan for 6 weeks. If you buy groceries every week using BNPL, by week 4, you aren't paying for 1 week of food. You are stacking 4 different installment plans on top of each other just to eat.
It's financial alchemy, Anthony. Why pay $150 for groceries today when you can pay $37.50 today and then spend the next month playing financial Jenga across 4 different banking apps?
And it's not just low-income households. The data shows that over 33% of households earning more than $100,000 a year are using BNPL for everyday essentials.
That's wild.
Why? Because between persistent inflation, elevated interest rates, and soaring housing costs, even 6-figure earners are running out of cash flow at the end of the month.
Right. The most alarming stat in that entire study is that 54% of BNPL users explicitly admitted they wouldn't be able to make ends meet without these loans. We have transitioned from using BNPL for discretionary splurges to using it as an emergency financial life raft, just to keep the lights on and the fridge full.
And it's not just fintech startups like Klarna, Affirm, and Sezzle pushing this. The massive tech and retail conglomerates are realizing that the American consumer is tapped out, so they are inventing brand new ways to stretch payments out forever.
Look no further than Apple's announcement. They officially killed off their traditional iPhone upgrade program and launched Apple Upgrade, a hardware leasing program powered directly by Klarna.
You can now lease an iPhone starting at $18 a month, a MacBook for $25, or an Apple Watch for $12. But notice the wording there, Dana. It's a lease.
A lease, right.
You don't even own the hardware anymore. At the end of 2 or 3 years, you either hand the device back, pay a massive lump sum to buy it out, or roll right into a brand new lease for the next model.
It's the subscriptionification of physical reality. Silicon Valley realized people can't afford a $1,200 smartphone outright anymore, especially with hardware prices climbing.
Exactly.
So instead of lowering prices or making devices last longer, they said, hey, why don't you just rent your entire digital life from us in perpetuity?
Exactly. Pretty soon, you'll be leasing your toaster, subscription financing your denim jeans, and taking out a 12-month installment plan on a pair of running shoes.
It's incredible.
Corporate America has figured out that if you break any price tag into bite-sized monthly chunks under $30, human psychology kicks in and people completely ignore the total cost.
Okay, so people are splitting up their grocery bills and leasing their electronics. Sounds like a minor consumer bad habit, right? Why is Wall Street starting to panic about this?
Because of what mortgage lenders and regulators are calling shadow debt. When you apply for a credit card, an auto loan, or a mortgage, the lender pulls your credit report from Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion.
Right, standard procedure.
They calculate your debt-to-income ratio to make sure you aren't drowning in debt.
But here's the catch. The vast majority of BNPL platforms do not report short-term installment loans to the credit bureaus.
Bingo! Only one major BNPL provider consistently reports data, and even then, only to 2 of the 3 bureaus.
So it's invisible debt.
That means if an underwriter looks at a home buyer's credit report today, that buyer might look like a clean, low-risk applicant with a modest credit card balance.
Meanwhile, under the surface, that same borrower might have 7 different active BNPL plans, 1 for their couch, 2 for their clothes, 1 for their tires, and 3 for their weekly supermarket runs.
It's a complete statistical illusion. Mortgage brokers and bank risk officers are trying to underwrite loans blindfolded.
Wow.
According to recent consumer financial studies, 63% of BNPL users hold multiple BNPL loans simultaneously, and over a third are using multiple different apps at the exact same time. It's called loan stacking.
Does this sound familiar to anyone who remembers 2008?
It does.
In 2008, the financial system collapsed because banks didn't know how much toxic subprime risk was hidden inside mortgage-backed securities. Today, the system doesn't know how much toxic consumer debt is hidden inside phone apps.
And the strain on these borrowers is already showing. Let's look at the late payment metrics, because this is where the low-risk narrative completely falls apart.
Right now, credit card delinquencies sit at their highest levels since 2020, with total credit card debt smashing through $1.23 trillion. But BNPL delinquencies are escalating even faster. LendingTree's 2026 data shows that 47% of BNPL users paid late on a loan in the past year.
Nearly half, up from 41% last year and 34% 2 years ago. Nearly 1 in 2 people using these apps are missing their installment deadlines.
Now, the BNPL defenders like to say, well, default charge-off rates are still low, around 2%, but that ignores how these apps operate.
Right.
When a user misses a BNPL payment, what do? They don't just magically find cash, they charge the BNPL installment to a high-interest credit card.
Exactly. They're shuffling debt from one bucket to another. They use credit card A to pay off Klarna, use Affirm to buy groceries, and use Sezzle to cover the electric bill. It is a financial game of musical chairs. And the moment the general labor market softens or hours get cut, the music stops.
Over 60% of BNLP borrowers fall into subprime or near subprime credit categories. They already have credit card utilization rates over 65%. They aren't using BNLP because they have healthy cash flow and want 0% interest.
That's the key.
They are using it because their credit cards are maxed out and BNPL doesn't do a hard credit check.
So, Dana, let's play this out. How does this turn from an individual consumer headache into a macroeconomic disaster for the U.S. economy?
It starts with a standard economic slowdown or a spike in unemployment. Let's say unemployment takes up from 4% to 5.5%. The first things subprime borrowers stop paying aren't their mortgages, it's their invisible BNPL loans.
Right, there's no immediate consequence.
Why? Because there's no credit card physical repossession guy coming for your frozen pizza.
Right, you can't repossess a sweater you bought 6 months ago or groceries you ate in May. So default rates on BNPL loans explode overnight from 2% to 15% or 20%.
When those default rates spike, the fintech platforms, who rely heavily on private credit funds and warehouse credit lines from major Wall Street banks to fund those loans, suddenly see their liquidity dry up. The private credit investors who chased 8% yields on BNPL loan pools panic and pull their money out.
Then comes the secondary wave. Banks realize that millions of consumers they thought were credit-worthy mortgage holders or auto loan borrowers actually have hundreds of dollars a month in hidden BNPL obligations.
The contagion spreads.
The default contagion spreads into credit cards, auto loans, and regional bank balance sheets.
And finally, you get the retail collapse. Remember, BNPL accounts for roughly 6 to 8% of all U.S. e-commerce spending. If BNPL platforms tighten lending standards or go bankrupt, consumer spending drops off a cliff.
A domino effect.
Retailers who relied on BNPL to artificially boost their average order values see sales plummet. That leads to corporate layoffs, which causes more debt defaults, and suddenly you are in a classic debt deflation spiral.
So Dana, let's bring it home for our listeners. What is the takeaway here? Is BNPL the pin that pops the consumer spending balloon?
It is definitely one of the biggest hidden pins out there. The American consumer has been hailed as resilient for the last 3 years because retail sales numbers kept rising despite high inflation.
Yeah.
But now we know how they were doing it. They were leveraging shadow debt to finance basic survival.
If you're an investor, you need to look very closely at consumer discretionary stocks, credit card issuers, and fintech lenders that are heavily dependent on low-income or subprime installment volume.
Absolutely.
When the regulatory hammer inevitably comes down and state attorneys general are already starting to demand investigations, these business models are going to face massive compliance costs and margin compression.
And if you are an individual household, the message is simple. Stop financing your life in 4 easy installments. If you need an installment plan to buy paper towels, coffee, or a phone case, that is not a payment strategy. That is a financial fire alarm telling you to cut expenses immediately.
Well said, Dana. That is all the time we have for today's episode of the Red State Finance Podcast.
Have you ever financed a grocery run? Or do you think BNPL is a total trap? We want to hear from you.
Until next time, keep your eyes on the data, your mind on the fundamentals, and your hands on your wallet.